Hello, all. I'm Kimberly Pierce Cartwright, News and Public Affairs Director at WNCU 90.7 FM. And thank you so much for tuning in to this segment of COVID Conversations. In this platform here on Zoom to talk about how the coronavirus and COVID-19 is affecting our world. And I have the good pleasure of having as my guest during this segment, Derrick Bowens. He is the director of the Durham County Board of Elections. Hello, how are you?
Hi, Kim. Thanks for having me here today.
It is my good pleasure to have you here as a guest. And I just want to say thank you because I know that you are super busy during this time.
Absolutely. No problem. Glad to be here.
Okay. So my first question has to do with voting in general. So there's so many things that are going on around voting, possible influences that could tamper with our elections, coronavirus, deciding whether or not you're going to vote in person, by mail, or if you're going to early vote. Talk to me about what your biggest challenge is while you're working through all of these issues as voters get ready to vote.
I would say the biggest thing is just voter education is probably the biggest challenge. There's a lot of misinformation out there about voting, some coming down, from sources that you wouldn't think they would come from. Just essentially, people getting the incorrect information, whether that comes from texts or mailers or things people say. That's probably the most challenging thing to combat right now is misinformation campaigns. So we're doing everything we can in conjunction with the State Board of Elections to educate folks. I just encourage everyone, if you're not sure about something someone said to you or something you've gotten, contact, instructive authorities on this, Board of Elections, State Board of Elections, so you can get the right answers.
So now that you're talking about getting things in the mail, I've gotten probably 5 letters in the mail talking about voting by mail. And I had to really scrutinize every piece of it to realize that none of the information that I got came from the Durham County Board of Elections. The county
right,
where I
exactly.
live. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's one of the indicators to look at is who that, we have a lot of voters calling saying, you sent me this and it won't fit in the envelope, or you sent me this. And well, the Board of Elections hasn't sent it. If it comes from the Board of Elections, it'll have our logo. It will have, a note that it's officially from the Board of Elections. So, you got to be very cautious these days about the information you get.
And I'm talking about voting by mail. What would you tell anybody who decides that they want to vote by mail? What would you tell them?
I would say, certainly it's an option. For anyone. There's no excuse in North Carolina. The main thing I would say, if that's an option you want to use, is that you request your absentee ballot online. It can now be done fully online in North Carolina pursuant to recent session law. That expedites the process because it eliminates the data entry requirement on our side because you've done it all on your side. So that expedites the ballot distribution process. I would also encourage people that if you're going to vote by mail, you should mail it. We're sending it by mail. You certainly have the option to bring it in person at the Board of Elections or an early voting location. But if you're going to return a ballot to an early voting location, you might as well vote in person because you're still going to have to do a check-in process if you bring it to an early voting site. So do it online, and also just consider alternative methods. We've got a safety plan in place for early voting. The board is spending a substantial amount of its budget on early voting. So we're huge advocates for early voting here at the Durham County Board of Elections. And President suggests that we should. 70% of voters voted early in 2016 out of the total turnout.
Wow, that is fantastic. You think I get the same kind of turnout? That many people are more voting in this election? What does the trend look like right now?
Well, I hope so. We've gotten over 40,000 absentee requests. As of tomorrow, we would have sent out over 40,000 ballots. That's a significant portion of our voter registration base, 230,000 total, 234,000, 35,000 total. So if all of those folks do absentee by mail, we'll obviously see a decrease in in-person voting if the trend continues and people continue to submit those requests. So I don't, if things go the way they've been going, I certainly don't suspect we will have the level of early voting turnout that we've had in the past.
When does early in-person voting start?
It starts on October 15th and it goes through October 31st. We've got 14 sites here in Durham, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. First two Saturdays, 8 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. Sundays, 2 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. And then the final Saturday from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m.
Very good. So what are you doing to get the place ready for people? Cleaning, disinfecting, how is that going?
Yep. So we have actually on our website, we have a COVID mitigation plan where we will be cleaning. We'll have a deep cleaning or a cleaning of one-stop sites prior to the start and following the close of early voting. Same thing applies to Election Day. And then during early voting, at the end of each day or each morning prior to voters presenting, a cleaning company will come in and wipe down high contact surface areas, clean our restrooms, that type of thing. So there will be daily cleanings during early voting and then a more comprehensive cleaning on the day prior to the start of one stop and then of course the day following.
Tell me, what would be the repercussions to anyone who would decide that they would want to vote twice?
Well, that's a felony. And anybody who is advocating for folks to vote twice, they're essentially encouraging people to complete felonies. It is illegal. I can tell you in Durham County, if you do it, I will happily report it to the Durham County Board of Elections, who will then refer it to the appropriate authorities to look into.
Cut and dry, huh? Yep. Are there any specific threats that you're worried about that may taint the voting process?
No, I think, you know, it's true and obvious that we're dealing with external actors that want to meddle in our elections. That's been proven. But I believe Durham County is in a strong position in terms of its IT infrastructure and security protocols to combat that. There is no silver bullet, obviously, but if people knew the level of auditing and reconciliation we do to reconcile elections and to make sure that there's no disparities or inaccuracies to the extent we can control that, it's very extensive. But yeah, the threat is real of external interference, but we are doing everything we can to make sure that that does not happen in Durham County and the state of North Carolina as a whole.
Okay, so we talked about mailing your ballots and we talked about early in person. What about Election Day? Do you have any tips that you might have for anybody who would want to come on that day? I know, well, I don't know, but if things go the way that they have in other presidential election days, it's packed. There are lots of people who want to vote. So what tips do you have to give to people who would come out and brave COVID-19 and what are other forces to be able to vote?
Well, my first tip would be to vote early because, you know, voting on Election Day, it does increase long lines. That's one day. All 57 polling places are open. You have to go to your specific polling place. If you go to your incorrect polling place, that's a provisional ballot. Early voting, you can go to any site. There's a substantial amount of hours. So that would be the first thing I would encourage. Secondly is follow trends. We plan to release at some point kind of a histogram of sorts that show turnout by hour over comparable election years. So use data to make a decision, even during early voting, in terms of the times that would be best to go based on what historical trends are telling us. And then we're also working on Election Day, a wait time tool where voters can go on our website and actually see what the wait time is at their polling place at any given time. That's still in the works, but my biggest encouragement to people that want to vote on Election Day is vote early. We got a lot of hours, we got a lot of sites, and you can avoid long lines if you vote early.
Well, I want to ask like some really basic stuff. Like, how do I register to vote? For anybody, there may be some new voters, or there may be some people who have never voted and they've been old enough forever. But how do you register to vote?
So voter registration, first, the voter registration deadline is October 9th in North Carolina for this election. That's 25 days prior to the election. That said, same day registration during early voting opens up the Thursday after that, which is the 15th. For those that do want to register, you can come down to the Board of Elections office if you want to come in person to deliver your form. You can also get one off of our website, complete that, print it, and mail it in. You can also register online fully if you are a DMV customer. So there now is online registration for DMV customers that can also be found on our voter registration page of the website. So it's a pretty easy process, but up until October 9th, you can certainly submit that form to us. And then if you miss that deadline and you meet, you've been here for at least 30 days preceding the election, you meet all the registration standards, and you're able to provide a proof of residency document when you present in person a one-stop site, you can register in person and vote at the same time.
Okay. Now, when do I vote?
So election day is November the 3rd. Absentee by mail started on September 4th. So as we're getting requests in for those, we're sending out ballots as quickly as we can. And then, of course, October 15th through the 31st is the early voting period. So you can vote. If you're a registered voter in North Carolina, you can choose any of those methods, any one method to vote.
Now, and then another question is, who's running in the election? I know we know the very top of the ticket, but then, maybe here locally, people might not have a understanding of who's on the ballot.
Yeah, sure. So we've got several. So we, of course, U.S. President, we've got U.S. Senate, we've got U.S. Congressional District 4, we've got state offices, NC Senate, NC House. We've got Durham County Board of Commissioners, we've got Register of Deeds, we've got Soil and Water. Some folks will have Superior Court. We've got District Court Judge, Council of State seats. So there's several offices on the ballot. Of course, you can go to our website and see your sample ballot. And conduct research on your own for the candidates that are running for each office.
So when I go to vote, do I have to declare a party?
You do not. During a primary election, you do have to state your party affiliation as a part of the check-in process, and you're stuck with that party's primary ballot. Unless you're an unaffiliated voter, then you get to choose. But that's just during a primary. For the general election, you will just state your name and your current residence address, and they'll process you, and party is of no factor in a general election.
So like during this time that we're battling COVID-19, how are you managing to staff your facilities with helpers to get people through the voting process?
Well, Durham has gotten a substantial amount of interest from its community, folks wanting to engage and work the polls, to the point where we actually had to close down our application recently. We've had so much interest. So there's been some initiatives by the State Board of Elections, the Democracy Heroes program. We've gotten a lot of applicants through that program. Also just the news, putting information out there about poll worker shortages, bringing in younger folks to engage, because some of our older base is more susceptible to COVID-19. Working with NCCU, I know we've gotten applications through NCCU. Shout out to Dr. Angela Coleman. So we have definitely had a lot of outreach initiatives, and I think we're feeling good about our ability to reach our numbers.
Okay. Is there anything else finally that you would like people to know, maybe that I didn't ask you?
I would just say vote, but not often, as has been purported or directly stated. Vote once. It is a felony to vote more than once. If you're not sure, contact the Board of Elections. We've gotten a lot of calls. We may not be able to respond right away, but you can also email us at elections@dconc.gov. and just vote. We need people to vote. The Board of Elections is doing everything it can to make sure we have safe, spaced voting enclosures that are clean. So we really need folks to vote this election. Do not wait until the last minute. Vote early. Avoid election day, issues. Vote early. I can't emphasize voting early enough.
Okay. Derrick Bowens is the director of the Durham County Board of Elections. Thank you very much for being with me today.
Thank you, Kim. Really appreciate it.
And thank you, audience, for viewing and listening. I'm Kimberly Pierce Cartwright, and I've been listening to COVID Conversations on WNCU 90.7 FM. Thanks.